Hey, so I did my presentation on the Common Core in the early childhood edition, and this was kind of tough for me because I wasn't in the classroom as a teacher when they were implemented. So I'm kind of just going off the research I'm finding, which is really contradictory, actually. Like you can tell the people's views of the standards based upon what they're writing. I don't seem to find too much data that is objective like I would want it to be. But with that being said, um, I found a lot more critiques on the Common Core for early childhood than I did just people for it or just general information about what they mean for early childhood. So, Common Core's aims, they claim that they have fewer, clearer, higher standards for all students. But I was reading on one of the papers, and they actually have more. Oh, it was the main article. They actually are made up of a lot of papers. Like you're looking through a lot to find all the standards. It's very wordy. Excuse me. The second one is that they are created with all stakeholders in mind. Again, something I got from the main article that seemed to be like the most objective article out of the ones I found for this project are. But supposedly they used the feedback that they got from public, teachers, parents, states, area people, or whatever, and they took all that and their solution for it were creating the Common Core state standards. And I was reading in another article, and it said that the National Math Advisory Panel did some type of research study, and oh no, I lost the paper where I said it. Oh no, I lied. It was the National Math Advisory Panel. It was the National Research Council. They did a study and then they discovered that math learning in the early years um, was the result of coincidence and not purposeful instruction. So, like, if they were playing with something, the teacher would like highlight on whatever that child was doing, and that's the way of teaching math rather than explicitly saying, "Hey, um, let's learn about this today. Like, this is our goal or our objective for today. This is what we're kind of focused on learning." Um, and so the purpose behind creating the standards was to create a trajectory for learning so that it is purposeful, so that the future grades know, the teacher for the current grades know what the future holds for the students. They need to know what they will, like the direction they're headed and what they're going to need to know and be able to do by the end of the next grade or and the end of their current grade and how that affects the next grade, should I say. Um, and then another aim or goal of theirs was to identify as just standards and not to be confused with the curriculum. Um, the curriculum is a tool that they're using to implement the standards, and they're only worthwhile implementing. The standards are only worth implementing if they're backed by quality curriculum and instruction. So, Common Core state standards in the early years. It's a necessity. It's the NAEYC says that early learning standards require effective curriculum, classroom practices, and teaching strategies that connect the interests and abilities of children to promote their development and learning. For practice, it says theories suggest things that may not necessarily agree with practice. So, in one of the articles, it was I don't know where the first page of this one is. Oh, the Clements, Fuson, and Sarah Maya article was talking about how they have different Piaget and Vygotsky and all those theories that we learned about in undergrad. um, how the standards aren't necessarily going with what we learned from their theories. Like, that's just not something that is worth doing, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. That article was kind of tricky to me. I kind of got what they were saying, but yeah, just ignore that whole thing I said. I'm not starting over again. And something else I wanted to kind of speak on was the fact versus fiction. Depending on who you talk to, they're going to believe certain things about the standards, especially in early childhood, because parents don't necessarily understand school terms, and schools don't necessarily do the best job of delivering that information so that parents are informed and know what this stuff means. And it's probably because of the actual implementation, or like the way they started integrating it into schools wasn't the best. And now schools have different curriculums that make the standards seem as if they're being either too rigorous or not rigorous enough, or just silly. And then so by the time the parents see it and the child needs help, they automatically blame the standards when it's really just the curriculum. But it's kind of just in the eye of whoever is looking at the information and how much research they want to put into caring about whether it's real or not, or like what they're thinking is real or not. And so that kind of brings me into the critiques section of this. I don't know, my TED Talk. I'm calling this my TED Talk. The critique section. And they're not in any particular order. They kind of just however I was reading it, reading the information. Just kind of, I just started at one and moved from there. So, the main article talked about the technology. So the terminology. So some of the wording is neither clear nor specific. And I mean, to me, the standards seem pretty cut and dry, but as I said, in faculty meetings or PLCs, and we're with our instructional coaches, and they're asking us about the standards and how what are examples of the standards, and what is the little shift that is taken from one year to the next year. You do see that difference in terminology, and how specific things must be stated in this Common Core for you to, I don't know what I'm trying to say. How specific it needs to be. Like I sat in my last year of undergrad, they were revising the standards or whatever, and they had 2 grade levels mixed together at a time. So like second and third, so second grade teacher could talk to the third grade teacher about what they're missing, and what doesn't work, I guess, and how the wording is misleading. And I think that was a pretty good approach to fixing that terminology issue. So the second one was lacking evidence. There isn't much research to prove that the national standards have a large effect on improving educational quality. But I read somewhere else that says that is false. And that was one of the big issues I found looking at all of these articles. A lot of them contradicted themselves. I mean, a lot of them contradicted a single statement. So it wasn't within the same article, but it's like I had to look at the years and stuff and try to figure out which one is the most relevant, and like what do they base their information off of. The third one limits parental and teacher choice. Parents and teachers both lose some freedom to advocate for changes in standard at the local level. And then there was something else in this article that I found that one from that said that for the states that do adopt the Common Core, it's not even like they can just move their child from school to school if they don't like the standards, because the whole state is implementing it. And it kind of limits their ability to watch their child succeed, even if they don't agree with the standards per se. Number 4, uneven playing field. The standards are objective and assume that students are bringing the same ability to learn skills at the same pace. that's a problem, not just with the standards, but with every curriculum, with this tests that go with the standards and the curriculums. Like it's it's not practical. Let's say that. Number 5, input doesn't match the audience. This one I found 2 different answers for. So one article said that none of the members of the panel that created the standards were in the education field at all. Like they weren't teachers or educational leaders or whatever. And then another one, which is an older article, a more recent article, should I say, said that that was a false statement and that early childhood and elementary teachers from pre-K to 16 backgrounds and pre-K to 20 backgrounds were on the committee that made the standards. So I'm going to guess that that statement is more true just because it's more recent than the other one is. But I don't really know. Number 6, there's no time for play. Everybody and all the critiques, like I looked on some blogs and I looked at regular journal articles and it was all like there's no time for play. The standards are too rigorous and don't leave enough time for kids to enjoy school. Well, I feel like with any standards that we're going to have, they are going to be, the goal is to get the children college and career ready by the end. So, I really don't know what to say about that because I think that most of your day should be challenging and it should be heading in some sort of direction. So I don't know what to say about that. But I did read something in one of the articles where the National Math Advisory Panel said that when compared to research in science and child development, the standards seem to go against what science is saying to be successful teaching. So maybe all that like direct teaching, not direct teaching, but like that purposely led teaching towards all of these goals and skills by the end of the year might be a little bit of an issue because it's not how the students are really supposed to learn, says this panel and the science research. Key terms that they looked up, I don't know. But I have opened a Padlet, and you have to create an account on Padlet.com. But I was hoping that everybody can kind of add in to the little bubbles that are there. I put in some main topic bubbles that focused on what me, Francine, and Julie have talked about. And if you could add in on to those, you just click the little button in the right hand corner. It's like a plus sign and a circle around it. You click that, you add in whatever comment you want, and then once you're done, you click out of it, and then you can link it to another circle by clicking the 3 dots that are next to it, and it will allow you to pick which other Padlet you want it to link to. That was going to be part of our activities as well as something else that can't really be done online. But if you can create your Padlet account, I will email everybody. I will post the link so that everybody can join it and add as you wish.